behind me.
How's it going, Ken?
Good, and yourself there, Keith?
Oh, just another day in paradise. Trying to not be a non-essential person. Trying to stay busy and do stuff, right?
Well, I couldn't even imagine being in your shoes. I'm pretty lucky that the government, as quotation marks, deemed me essential so that I actually get to go out and do some work every day.
Right. And so wintertime for bricklayers is terrible. We hardly work in the winter anyways. So I'm coming out of a bad slow winter, and just when we're about to start working, everything gets shut down on me, right? So now I'm sitting here. This is prime time for me. This is when I make my money.
Yeah, but
And
you should be thankful the government's giving you $2,000 a month.
oh, I know, right? It's just and I get to sit around and do nothing, and I get to age fast, and I get to get fat, sitting
Yeah.
here eating all my food. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Well, I'll eat more food because then you keep me in business. I'm in the food distribution industry, so.
There you go. You're allowed to still cross into Quebec, right?
I have actually a legal paper from the government deeming me essential so that I can cross if need be. So when I need my cheap beer, I can use that paper to go get it.
There you go. Isn't this something? Like, did you ever think in your life, Ken, that you would see something like this happen?
Never in my life. But what gets me even more is what Doug Ford and Justin Trudeau both said. Doug Ford yesterday and Trudeau said today in his press conference that they never, when they say we're going to get back to normal, they always say the new normal. So life as we know it as before, as far as the government is concerned, is never going to happen again. There's always going to be restrictions placed on us. They use this as a test run. They see how far they can go. Fear does amazing stuff with people. You just give them a bunch of fear and tell them you're going to die, and they'll roll over backwards for you.
Isn't it? It's crazy. I never thought in my lifetime I would ever see this type of reaction by Canadians, right? We're known around the world. When you have a world war and you got a hill you got to take, you send those pesky Canadians up that hill. We'll take it for you because we're strong and we're. But I don't see that anymore. I see a bunch of rollover weak. Um, there's not enough adjectives to describe how disappointed I am in my brothers and sisters in this country, and the way that they're taking this. And the next thing that bothers me about all of this, Ken, is there's no independent thought going into any of this. It's all whatever they see Dr. Tam say. Oh, you got to listen to her. You got to get along. You got to go along to get along. You just if you just listen to her and everybody will be okay, and then we'll come out of the back end of this. There's no forethought into what these measures are going to do on the back side of it. Nobody's even talking about it, and when you bring it up, you get shushed right away.
Oh, geez, I've been told, don't you care about people and all that, and I keep telling them it's because I do care about people that I'm so vocal about this. Like, you see me on Facebook being vocal every single day with this, and I'm really passionate on this because I do care about people. Alone in the Ontario, the mental health issues have spiked by 50%.
Yes.
Like that's amazing. And when you mention it is, oh, you don't care about people. Well, I do care about the hotlines for the mental health are overblown. They don't have enough personnel to service these hotlines. First of all, the ones that are staying home because of COVID-19, because of the fear. And fine, if that's what you want to do, I don't have a problem with this. But we need to get more people, more volunteers back into these centers to help the ones with the mental health issues. I can also our health system. It's great to see the last figure I known was a hospital was running at 69%. It's great to have those figures, but not because of this situation. They should be running at 69% all the time, so that when something like this does happen, we're prepared for it.
That's right. So the next narrative that you hear a lot of is if it only saves one life,
Yeah,
I'll
how
do
many
whatever it
lives
takes if it only saves one. right?
And how many lives are you killing in the background?
Well, that's a really good question, and never addressed. No one will even like when I bring that conversation up, no one even goes there. It's always they completely ignore it. They completely deflect that question away.
Yeah.
So, what do you see on the back end of this? What do you think is going to happen in
Well,
our wonderful country after this is all said and done?
I can throw some figures out there for you instead of using my own words. Let's use the
Sure.
words that are out there. The IMF is predicting the world poverty to double to 500 million people. That's that's what the IMF. That's not from me. Our Canadian economy alone is going to at least hit a trillion. Let's just use the figure of $1 trillion at 36 million people. $1 trillion. You know, we all owe the government $28,000, and that's only the federal government. Let's don't forget about the 8,000 that we owe the provincial government for their debt. So why don't we just round it all up and just write a check for $40,000 and say, okay, we're all good. Let's move on with our lives.
It's huge numbers, right?
Yeah. Well, when you break it down to individual, that's every adult, every child, every infant, $40,000 basically.
That's right. It's not basically, it's real. And by the time you actually were to, if you were to actually pay that off and focus on it, it'd probably be like 60 or 70 by the time the interest is added up on that. But neither here nor there. The Keynesians will just continue to print money and they'll continue to devalue our dollar, and we'll just have less and less value every day to buy things, and that's the direction we're heading. I've been reading some really terrible news about our supply chain too, about how we can't get anybody to work in the meat packing plants, and we can't get anybody to work in the fields and pick any vegetables. And we're I think from what I've seen, maybe 4 or 5 weeks away from our supply chain cracking.
Well, I can actually speak directly to that. As I say, I'm in the food distribution business. I'm in the bakery side of it, not the meat processing side. So my last cookie order, I ordered 700 cases. Only 300 arrived. And when I talked to like I'm under contract here, I make money by selling. I'm on a 100% commission basis. So for me to lose half my order, it's like, what's happening here? I'm told we're not getting the raw products. There's no flour, there's no sugar. So these are big bakeries that aren't even getting it. Next week I'm going to be picking up bread on my truck so that hopefully I can get the money in from the bread. I don't qualify for COVID-19 because I'm still working, and not that I want government money anyways. I haven't accepted government money in I don't know how many years, probably 30 years, and I plan to keep it that way. Um,
Sure.
wealth distribution is yeah. Well, that's another topic, but
No, and but it isn't another topic. It's part and parcel with all of this. Ken, at the end of the day, um, people are all too willing to sit back and accept that. And I'm in a situation where I really don't have a choice. As a bricklayer, I don't work all winter long. If this had happened, say like September or November, and I was coming out of the summer, I might not have to. But now that I had to ride the winter out, and I'm expecting to go back to work in March and April when the weather turns. I'm stuck. I don't have that choice, and forced into it basically by the government saying that you're non-essential. And to be a bricklayer, it's not hard for me to social distance. If you're building a 30-foot long wall, I never have to be anywhere near anybody to do my job. But because these policies are rushed and they're reactive and they're not proactive and they're not thought out, you end up with all kinds of people sitting at home doing nothing when they could be working. You have a whole bunch of people working who should be sitting at home if you were actually going to be doing this correctly. We still have 600,000 people a day riding the TTC. You're passing this to people at home now, so someone will go out on the TTC, catch this virus, come home and hand it to his family. So there's no common sense and there's no thought put into any of it. It's literally just standing back going, okay, people are screaming for more protection. What can I do to shut everything, to shut them down to a point where there's nothing left? And What we're also seeing now in the farms, because I was kind of going there with this conversation, is that the $2,000 a month that the government's handing people is more than the money that those guys were going to make in the field. So you have a problem getting people to even just go and pick this stuff or to work in the meatpacking plant, which isn't much more than that $2,000 a month. You've de-incentivized everybody from getting off their ass and going and doing something. And we're about to see some real problems coming down the line from that, because when you are no longer got food in the grocery store, what is a guy in Toronto to do to feed himself? Or in Ottawa, it's different for a guy out in Kenora. He takes his rifle, he goes and he shoots a buck. He's got meat for the next 5 months. There's nobody to shoot or nothing to shoot in Toronto to eat. So how do we end up? How do we get out of that? And it's a terrible situation. But what do you see? Do you ever see rights coming back?
Some of our rights will come back, but there's going to be a lot of, the governments have been saying it for weeks now, that there's going to be a lot of new precautions put in place. Um, my, the government's there to keep us safe. That's their job. Protect our borders, keep us safe. But now the question comes, where do we put that border of what's safe? What should be my decision to keep us safe, and what should be the government's decision to keep us safe? We have rules and regulations. There's always going to be. I'm not one that don't believe that we shouldn't have any government. We do need government for certain things, but where do we draw that line of when it's my responsibility and when it's the government responsibility?
It's a great question.
We've heard a lot of stuff in the past. I loved your interview the other day with Tim. The thoughts that he came, it's why can't we give a risk assessment to something and make the decision if we want to do it? It's so easy, and it puts the responsibility back on the people. Take it away from the government. So right now, I visit 40 stores a week right now. As that's my risk assessment. I'm going in there. To me, to earn that money, it's worth the risk, because my age and all that, I got relatively, even if I do catch COVID-19, but I'm in extra precaution so that I don't get it, because I don't want COVID-19. I don't want anybody to catch COVID-19, but I'm able to fight it off. What to me, the government is, we have to protect the people that can't fight it off, our elderly, the ones with respiratory issues and all that. And they've done a terrible job at that. 50% of the deaths right now in Canada come from the nursing homes and all that. What we should be looking at is not shutting down the economy. How can we protect these people so that everybody else can go back and live their lives?
Well, that's right, exactly. And so you can't shut down the economy, because people need to eat. People have to have, there has to be a certain amount of activity going on. And the minute that you come to the conclusion that some people are going to be out in public and some people are going to be out doing things, you also have to take that to the next step and realize that you're not going to stop the spread of this virus. It's an impossibility. As soon as it hit the ground here and it took hold, it was over. This is going to go through society. So you're really not saving anybody's lives. The only lives that you could save are the ones that you could lock away, the older, the elderly, the immunocompromised, but we failed them as well. Yes. At the end of the day. And I would hazard that the government purpose is not to keep us safe, it's to keep us free. They're there to protect our rights. We keep ourselves safe. Government isn't there to keep us safe, in my mind. They're there to keep us free. And that's a lost part of this conversation. They never used to worry about our safety. Borders are different. But internally in here, they're not here to keep us safe. They're just here to allow us to do business and to have a free society. And somewhere along the line, everybody thinks that things just magically appear on that grocery shelf. That the steak cuts itself and packages itself, and then all of a sudden, bam, there it is. And there's a whole process in feeding us, and it's disappearing. We're losing that chain of supply. And when that happens, we're going to see like biblical stuff happening. I can't emphasize enough that if you look at a city the size of Toronto, Once the grocery stores are empty, you have about a 72-hour window because people will go hungry for about 2 or 3 days. But by that third day, and there's no food in the grocery stores, what do you think is going to happen? These people are going to start kicking indoors. They're going to start, it's going to become mob rule. Whoever has the biggest bat is going to get the most food. All of the guns that you didn't think that were in Canada are going to come out of the woodwork because they're there,
Yep.
and it's going to be this disaster. Um,
Yep. You see it right now in the stores, like how many empty shelves. I don't know what the obsession is with frozen pizza too, but supposedly sales are up 92%. I don't know. People don't know how to cook, so they're just throwing it in the oven or something. But it's crazy. You go. We've been trying to buy flour for 2 weeks. There's not one store that can even get a bag of flour at it. It's as I say, you talk about the farmers not being in the field. There's one percussion right there. You want to bake something, you want a brownie or whatever. It's done with. It's this should never happen in a free society like Canada. We should be able to move our goods freely across borders. This I say this is unthinkable. Never in my lifetime would I think we would ever come to this situation.
Me either. But what distresses me is that our government doesn't have this conversation. I haven't heard once Trudeau stand up there and say, "Guys, we need to rally together and we need to keep the food supply chain open. We need everybody who's strong and willing to get out in the field. We'll do whatever we have to do." He's incentivizing everything else. Why aren't you incentivizing people to work in the meatpacking plant? Why aren't you incentivizing people to go out in the field and pick food from the field? And not that I agree with the incentives. I think that if a Canadian young man had enough knowledge and was given that knowledge from his government that there was a problem there, that they'd gladly stand up and they would take that role. But nobody's even talking about it, and we're just sitting here watching this all break apart.
Oh yeah, don't even, let's not even think about the supply and demand. Like as soon as the supply goes down, then the demand goes up. What happens? Prices rise. It's that's common sense. Pretty soon we won't even with what little food we do have in the grocery stores, we won't even be able to afford it because the prices will be so high because everybody wants that last steak or that last thing of flour or whatever. It's just keeps a continual roll. You listen to the government today, the federal government today, they have zero plan of reopening up the economy, according to Trudeau. He's talking about vaccines. We're not opening up the economy fully until we actually get a vaccine. You listen to scientists from around the world. For example, Australia came out with a report 2 weeks ago saying they don't even believe there will be a vaccine. They've never been able to find a coronavirus vaccine. They don't believe COVID-19 is anything different. Like, I'm not a scientist. I can't get into from what I understand, the coronavirus attacks the lung from the outside, where the flu attacks it from the inside, and because of that, they're having trouble. It attacks the cell, so they're having trouble of being able to kill the virus without killing the cell. That's probably most of my knowledge right there. But I'm going to believe this guy who said he worked 18 months on trying to find a vaccine for SARS and couldn't do it, and he doesn't believe there's any way it can be done. So why should I argue against him?
He's the expert,
He's
right?
the
And
yes.
and I've read similar reports from microbiologists, and what they say is that the coronaviruses attack the upper respiratory system, the higher stuff, and higher up in your lungs. It's more like your skin on the outside than it is an internal organ. And we don't have any vaccines for any type of skin disorder because it's different, right? It's not inside, it's on the surface. So that's the problem with the coronavirus, from what I understand. And again, I'm a layman like you, but I'll tell you, I've sure read a lot of reports about microbiology in the last few weeks, right? And when
Yeah.
you're in a situation like this, and all you have is Dr. Tam, who's been wrong all the time, like everything she said has been wrong all the way down the line. An intelligent person like myself starts to search out for better information.
Oh,
It doesn't, you don't have to be wrong too many times when you're talking about the lives of millions of Canadians before I start looking other places for information. And
I
I've
I agree with you. Like we even have the city of Ottawa health officials disagreeing with Dr. Tam. So who am I supposed to believe, Dr. Tam or the health officials from the city of Ottawa, when they can't even agree on something simple about sitting in your laneway having a beer? And I'm supposed to be getting my advice from these people? And when I ask a simple question, I'll go to an actual scenario that happened on Sunday. A church over in Elmer, which is in Quebec, just 2 minutes from across the Ottawa border, decided to have a church service. They were forewarned. They had done this twice before. They were warned that if they have a third service, that they were going to be charged. Their service was, everybody showed up in the cars. It was like a drive-in movie type of service. They had the screen there with the pastor on FM transmitter. Nobody left their vehicles. The police were there waiting for them, took down everybody's license plate number, informed the church after the service that they will be charged, there will be fines coming, and everybody that attended will be receiving a fine. Not one person left the vehicle. Can you tell me how this policy, how does that stop the spread of COVID-19? It does absolutely nothing for why we're supposed to be in this lockdown except disrupt somebody's life. If they want to go and sit in their vehicle and listen to the pastor, by all means, go ahead and do it. It's not my type of thing. I'm not very religious, but if you want to go do it, go ahead. They didn't even have collection because they didn't want anybody opening up their windows.
right.
So,
So
like,
common sense has failed. There is no common sense left. It's
yeah,
literally you will listen or I will step on your throat with my jackboot until
yeah.
you listen. And people don't understand that. They don't see that. And the reason that people are looking for ways around the rules is because the rules are stupid and they're well beyond what needs to be done, and there is no thought put into any of these rules at all. It's literally just reactionary politics. How far can I shove the boot down your throat before you finally start to choke? And it doesn't look like anybody's choking in this country very hard on that boot. They're accepting it quite willingly, and
Oh
that
yeah.
is the biggest shock to me is the ease at which this this new normal has rolled out across the country,
Well,
right?
even these rules that are made for you and me, but not for the people that are making the rules. Like you take three of the five parties in Parliament right now, federal parties. You get Justin Trudeau, the MP, or the PM. You get Andrew Scheer, the leader of the Conservative Party, and you get Elizabeth May, the leader of the Green Party. Both Conservative and Green are on the way out. Um, those three have all broken the rules with zero consequence. And when you take it out there to the people and say, hey, why do these people get to break the rules? It's, oh, never mind them. Well, yes, the rules are supposed to be for all of us, but yet you close your eyes and look the other way when they break it. But when we do it, you jump all over us and point. I go out, walk my dog, there's people staring at me. Like,
What
but
do you think of snitch lines? What's your reaction to that?
my favorite one is the 1-800 I'm a Nazi, but
Right? Yeah. And so in New York,
yeah,
they had an app set up to do that, and right away the app was I think they pulled it down within a day because all they got were dick pics and Nazi
I heard
memes,
that.
Hitler memes, and that's you know what that's the reaction that I would expect to see is you know what, we're not Nazis, we're not going to roll back the clock and enter that fascist state where you know what, I'm gonna rat on my neighbors. Um, the if I was to do anything, I would have the conversation with them. If I thought that they were doing anything that needed to be discussed, I would rather do it myself. I have enough, stamina in my heart to look my neighbor in the face and have a conversation with him. This whole snitching thing is just brutal, in my
Well,
opinion.
this comes back to the risk factor though. Like if somebody's willing to take the risk and put their own life to receive COVID-19, that's fine. That's their own personal choice. But the other side of the story, there's always two sides to everything. The other side, if you're willing to do that, then at least take the precautions not to give somebody who's very vulnerable, like the elderly or something, the chance to get COVID-19. So if you want to go walking in a group with 10 people or whatever, I really don't care. But don't go to your grandmother's house afterwards. Like, you have to be sensible on both sides of it.
Sure you do, and there is the other side of that, but what happens is, again, like Toronto, you have 600,000 people a day riding the TTC.
Yeah.
We already know from the data that this is at least 6 to 10% of the population has had this. They have antibodies in their system. There's really good studies coming out of New York that New York is well over 20%. The California locked down early, so they're at about 6 or 7%. But across the board, this is well past the numbers that you see on the world COVID meter that spins around where it says that 2 million people have it and 200,000 have died, and this well past that. And so once it's gone past that, it's no longer within our means to stop the spread, because 80% of the people are asymptomatic anyways, so they don't even know they have it. The way to stop the elderly from getting it is to literally shut them right off and have the medical teams that are looking after them completely checked and rolled out so that they only look after one set of people. There's things that could be done to protect them, but it's not on us as a general population anymore, because you're still letting 600,000 people a day ride the TTC. If you really want to do something, you have to do it. You can't just half-ass it and then point at us. You see, that's the thing. They allow the virus to spread around by keeping the TTC open and all these other wonderful things, like the grocery store. The worst thing I've ever seen is the straight line in the grocery store where everybody has to follow the arrows. Well, before, you never really saw the steps of everybody, but now that they've got you walking in a straight line, guaranteed everybody is going to touch that same area. You're all going to walk through the same space. So if anybody had it in that lineup, everybody had it in that lineup. And there's no thought to any of this. And that's what drives me crazy. It's literally like herding sheep. There is no pushback. There's no thought. It's, oh, that's a great idea. We should all just walk and touch the same cans. That's, and then I'm at the grocery store and I'm watching everybody touch the pin pad.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody walking up, touching the pin pad. The lady scrubbing her area where she stands like it's going out of style. Not one time did she spray that pin pad. And when I got up to the counter, I said, I'd appreciate if you sprayed that pin pad for me, because if you're disinfecting everything around you to keep you safe, it'd be nice to think about the customer and spray that pin pad too, wouldn't it?
Well, it's on the wrong side of the plexiglass, right?
It's something she doesn't want to touch because she knows that's where the virus is. She's going to spray where she is and keep herself.
Exactly.
Screw touching that pin pad, though. So it's a terrible situation, and it's unfortunate that all of our calls, or all of my interviews and calls, end up we talk about COVID, because there's so many more important things that I'd love in this world to discuss. But right now this is what we have, right? This is
what we're in right now. I've learned a lot of stuff too. Like, say, I'm in the food distribution business, and I would never thought of these things. I carry around with me right now on my belt. I carry hand sanitizer. I would never. 2 months ago, I wouldn't even think about walking around with hand sanitizer. But you know what? What's the harm in it? It cost me a few dollars, or now a few more dollars with inflation. But it doesn't really do much. And after I touch something, I can put it on. I usually put it on before, just in case there's something out there. Maybe I can kill it there. If there is a couple of germs there, I can do my best there too. And when I leave, I do it again. And it's small things like that. Keep it like basic hygiene, wash your hands and all that. Yeah, sure, we never would have done it every 20 minutes before what they're suggesting. I don't even think most people are still doing it every 20 minutes, but it's something that people are thinking about. Hey, maybe we should be doing this. Maybe this will help for future events and all that. And those are the positives that we can take out of it. But we have to look at what the negative also come in and say, hey, what can we do if this ever happens again? What can we do that we don't go back into this? Which we're not doing, actually. If they take the last time we had a major virus that really affected the world population was the Spanish flu back in 1918, and they're not taking what happened in 1918 and applying it today. It's
Pieces of it. They,
pieces.
they take the piece that fits their narrative and they apply it, but the part that doesn't fit their narrative, like the cities that did lock down early, didn't have a bad first wave. What they had was a bad second wave.
Yeah,
And people, it's like you take a story and you just cut the page right where you no longer want to, that information doesn't serve you at this point in time, so they throw it out. And history repeats itself, and those who don't understand their history are bound to repeat it again. And we're gonna go through this again and again until we get it right. And we're not getting it right. We're gonna kill a whole new set of people this way. And I love being called selfish for thinking about the millions of people who are about to face hunger and starvation. And it's unfortunate if the supply chain breaks, everybody will suffer. Then it's a 100% hunger rate, and now we're beating on neighbors' doors to get a can of soup, and we're all hopefully gonna figure out how to hunt and fish in a real hurry, because that's all you've got at that point.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
and the people doing the gardens and all that right now, they're going to have to protect their food supply because, I say, they're going to be raided and all that. Like, we're not all. I'll throw one of our comrades out there. We're not all Mark Snows that know how to look for the future for all this stuff and have our supplies all built up. What Mark does, I think, is great. I wish I could be like him, but
to prep, yeah, and
uh,
all, it's a whole new conversation, and I promise you that when we come out the backside of this, and I'm back bricklaying, and because eventually they'll want to build something, whether it's just a big wall around us, I don't know, but I'm going to have to. They're going to need bricklayers eventually, and when they do, I'm going to make sure that I have a supply of dry goods that will last me years.
yeah,
I will never go hungry, and I'm not saying that I'm going hungry right now, because the government has made it quite convenient for me to sit at home and get paid. And so that's not the end. That's the problem. The problem is the supply chain on the other side. And I wonder what it's going to look like if that does break, because we're at a line. And you, like you said, you see it in your industry too, the bread, the yeast. You can't get any flour. You can't get any of these major products to build it, to build the food. And so trouble all the way down the line.
yeah. I know. When we start running out of the basic necessities, that's the trouble.
That's a red light. It's a serious danger red light. So any young people out there who are listening to this today, find a butcher, find a cattle farm, find a field that needs vegetables picked, and go and save your country, because I think that's the best thing that you could do right now to help out with COVID-19, is make sure that people stay fed. So, and one more time, thank you to all you Albertans out there who have kept us fed all this time. You're the lifeline of us both. You make the oil, you make the money from the oil, and then you keep us fed with the cattle and the other side of that. So once again, Alberta to the rescue, and all hands on deck out there. If you guys are at home, get off your butts, get out in the field, and start working. And then isn't that sad that we have to sit here and we have to be rescued again by other people. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
we should all try to find a place where we can pitch into that supply line and help out.
And it seems like it's always Alberta that's wrestling the rest of Canada.
Right? One more time, boys. Save us out here. We're getting hungry, and I'm missing my steak.
Exactly.
All right, Ken, I'm going to let you go. You have a wonderful
Okay.
day. Thanks for the call.
One more thing though.
Sure.
You see this mop on the head. So if there's any unlicensed black market hairdressers out there that need some work, just give me a call. You know where I am on Facebook.
That's funny. I had a conversation with a friend of mine. He says, I'm taking barber school. And I said, I'll rent the hotel. You can come meet me in the hotel room. We'll keep it real private. I'll slide you 50, to do a haircut. Actually, my daughter's taking cosmetology, and we just kind of took my beard trimmer and we put it on like a number 7, and we rolled it over my head, and it's given me 2 more weeks. I've got 2 more weeks of life with her.
And I know every day I walk by and I look at those dog clippers and they look more appealing every minute.
Awesome. That's great. All right, Ken, you have a wonderful day.
You too, eh? Talk to you later, Keith.
Take care.
Look behind me.